Crime, taxes, immigration, grocery prices, healthcare costs. Illinois voters are being squeezed from every direction while Springfield insists the agenda is working. But there is a number inside a new Victory Research poll that changes the story, because J.B. Pritzker can still lead Darren Bailey and still face a state rejecting his record. By the end, you'll see why. November 20th to November 25th, Illinois. A Chicago-based firm, Victory Research, surveyed more than 1,200 likely voters, with results later reported by Fox 32 and Newsweek. For Governor J.B. Pritzker, the top line looked stable, 3% to 34%. That is not a collapse. It is a clear electoral advantage. And Pritzker's public message was aimed directly at household pressure. That message matters. Affordability is real, medical costs are real, but the poll was measuring something broader than one issue. Beneath the head-to-head lead, voters were grading the governing system itself. The headline said, Pritzker was ahead. The underlying numbers sent a warning Springfield could not afford to miss. First elected in 2018, J.B. Pritzker entered Springfield as a Democratic governor with room to define himself. By this poll, he was no longer being judged as a fresh alternative. He was being judged as the incumbent seeking a third term, with Illinois voters attaching the state's results to his administration. His strongest argument is clear. Illinois remains Democratic-leaning, and Pritzker has positioned himself as a national counterweight to Donald Trump, especially on immigration. To his supporters, that is leadership, a governor using state power to resist federal policies he believes harm Illinois families. But that same profile changed the race. Trump's attacks over crime in Chicago and immigration gave Republicans a simple frame. If Pritzker wants to nationalize the fight, then Illinois becomes the evidence. And once voters moved from party labels to specific issues, the lead looked thinner. Crime, taxes, and immigration were no longer abstractions. They became a report card. Start with the least familiar names first. In the Victory Research survey of more than 1,200 likely Illinois voters, DuPage County Sheriff James Mendrick, policy expert Ted Dabrowski, and real estate developer Rick Heidner all appeared as possible Republican alternatives. But compared with a sitting governor, their problem was basic: recognition. That matters because early horse race polling does not only measure approval, it measures whether voters know who is on the ballot. Then came Darren Bailey, the Republican Pritzker already defeated in 2022, 3% to 34%. On paper, that looks comfortable. It gives the incumbent the advantage of party alignment, statewide familiarity, and a challenger voters have already rejected once. That is the strongest argument for Pritzker. The race numbers still favors him, but the governing numbers told a different story. 1% of voters rated Pritzker's performance as good. 9% rated it bad. Let that land for a second. The same poll that showed him ahead also showed nearly 6 in 10 voters disapproving of his handling of crime. 5% said Illinois was on the wrong track. The lead made Pritzker look safe. The issue numbers showed the floor was already cracking. Here is the verdict number. 5% of likely Illinois voters said the state was on the wrong track. Let that land for a second. This was not a poll where voters simply lined up behind the Republican alternative. In the same survey, Pritzker still led Darren Bailey by more than 20 points. That distinction matters. It means the warning is not just partisan enthusiasm. Voters can look at Bailey, hesitate, and still say the direction of Illinois is failing. That is what makes the number politically humiliating. A campaign can survive an attack ad. It can survive an unpopular opponent. But a wrong-track majority is broader than one candidate. It becomes a judgment on the operating system. And immigration sharpened the contradiction. Pritzker has made opposition to Donald Trump's immigration agenda central to his national message. His argument is clear. Illinois is resisting federal overreach and defending immigrant communities. That is the strongest version of his case. 3% rated his handling of immigration positively. 57% rated it bad. So the issue he elevated did not insulate him. It exposed the gap between message and voter experience, because wrong track does not land first in campaign headquarters. It lands in families weighing costs, workers watching neighborhoods change, and local businesses trying to read the future. At that point, the pattern is no longer deniable. Maria is 39, a composite working parent in the Chicago suburbs, with a full-time job, a child in school, and a plan that once felt ordinary. Pay the mortgage, keep food in the fridge, and build a little breathing room. Now the choice is narrower. A higher grocery bill means delaying a medical appointment. A tax increase or fee means cutting back somewhere else. A safety concern near a train stop means changing a commute. None of it is dramatic enough to become a national headline, but together, it becomes a weekly audit of whether Illinois still works for people trying to stay. Pritzker is right to point at grocery prices and healthcare costs. Those pressures are real, but voters are also judging the system built around them. Small businesses feel it in payroll. Schools feel it in strain. Commuters feel it in time. Chicago residents can love their city and still doubt its leadership. Maria's problem is not one bill. It is a loop. The numbers do not describe a normal incumbent advantage. They describe a split verdict. 3% to 34%. 5% say Illinois is on the wrong track. 9% rate Pritzker's performance as bad. On immigration, 57% say bad. Let that land. A governor can be ahead in a matchup and still be losing the argument over direction. That is the Springfield loop. Voter anxiety rises. State leaders point to national opponents, federal policy, or outside pressures. The policy framework stays mostly intact. Crime concerns, immigration strain, taxes, and household costs remain visible. Then trust falls further, even among voters who are not ready to vote Republican. Pritzker's side has a real point. Federal policy affects Illinois. Healthcare costs do not begin and end in Springfield. Immigration fights are national, and grocery prices are shaped by forces far beyond one governor's desk. But polls do not ask voters to write a federalism essay. They ask whether the system they live under is working. And here, voters are separating ballot math from public confidence. That is the distinction at the center of the entire race. Winning a matchup is not the same as earning trust. The only question left is whether Illinois voters will act on that distinction or keep rewarding the same loop they say is failing. Maria's question is now the voters' question. If daily life still feels worse, does leadership earn another term? Pritzker may lead the race. 5% say Illinois is on the wrong track. That frustration is not confined to Chicago. You can see it in New York, Los Angeles, and Denver. So what should voters punish first? Crime, taxes, immigration, or cost of living? Thank you for watching.